Feels good to know where we live, where we move, and where we have our being. Yes, yes? Absolutely, absolutely. Well, good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. Good morning. So good to be here with all of you. It is so good to be in this vibration of love, this vibration of magnificence, this vibration of joy and celebration that we co-create together each and every Sunday. So we have a new month. It's August, which means we have a new message series, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. I encourage you to go to our website and click the store link, and you'll see under Prosperity and Abundance, you'll see this book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder, is available. We encourage you to go out and get that book, whether you get it via Amazon or Apple iBooks or Kindle, however you choose to read it. Get it, put it in your library. This is a book that you absolutely want to make sure that you have. So we're talking about prosperity this month, and as I was thinking about that, it brought me to a story that I believe I've shared once before, thinking about how prosperity works and what we want to discuss today. So it was a couple of years ago. I came home on a Friday evening, got home about 7:30, and I found that we had a leak in our kitchen sink, and it needed to be taken care of. Our super generally isn't available on Friday evenings, so I knew that I would have to take care of it. And so I took a look. I'm not a plumber, but I took a look, and I saw what was going on. I saw that there was a washer that was rusted and was broken. And so Home Depot is right by the house. I said, I can find this washer. I can replace it. Shouldn't be a problem. So I walked over to Home Depot and went to the plumbing aisle where all of the different things are. And I knew there was a specific tool or a specific wrench I needed. That was one of the first things I saw. I grabbed that. I said, okay, I got my tool. Now let me find this particular washer that I needed. And I walked to an area where most of the washers were, and I didn't see it. So I kept walking down the aisle, and I'm looking, and I walked back up, and I'm looking, and I'm not seeing this washer that I need. And I found myself, as I'm not seeing the washer that I need, I hear myself saying, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. And I'm walking down the aisle. I'm not seeing it. I'm walking back up. I'm not seeing it. And then I heard myself. And I said, wait, I'm affirming I'm not seeing it. Therefore, there's no way that I can see it. I stopped and I said, I am seeing what I am looking for. I am seeing what I'm looking for. And I'm seeing what I'm looking for. And I went right back to the same place that I started. There was the washer that I needed. That's how prosperity works. See, the truth of life is that there is gold dust everywhere for you. But the way we tend to live our life is just the way I lived my life in that aisle at Home Depot, saying, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. And so the universe gave me exactly what I affirmed. I could not see what was right there. But as soon as I turned my attention to the truth that I am seeing what I want to see, that it's right here, all of a sudden it showed up as if it were magic. That's how prosperity works. The truth of life is, as Catherine Ponder writes in the text, there is gold dust in the air for you, for me, and for everyone. But the first step is for us to even come to that understanding. The first key to prosperity is recognizing that your good is everywhere. Can we affirm this together? There is gold dust in the air for me.
There is gold dust in the air for me.
My good is everywhere.
My good is everywhere.
Again, can we affirm that? There is gold dust in the air for me.
There is gold dust in the air for me.
My good is everywhere.
My good is everywhere.
So again, this is the first key to understanding and beginning to develop a prosperity consciousness, to know that your good is everywhere. Now, in the text, and we use this quote in the a synopsis of the message from Russell H. Cromwell, he writes about prosperity, and he writes about what it means to be rich. And Catherine Ponder quotes him here, and he says, please note that the word rich means having an abundance of good or living a fuller, more satisfying life. You are prosperous to the degree that you are experiencing peace, health, happiness, and plenty in your world. This is what prosperity is about, and this is what being rich is about. We have a lot of other ideas about what it means. I want you to hear this and take this in. I'll say it again. You are prosperous to the degree that you are experiencing peace, health, happiness, and plenty in your world. Is prosperity about money? Yes, but not just about money. Plenty in every area of your life, in your world. Prosperity is about peace in your world. Prosperity is about good health in your world. And prosperity is about happiness and being happy. So as we recognize and we understand that, there's another idea that we must come in contact with as we're developing a consciousness of prosperity and developing and recognizing and coming into intimate contact with this idea that there is gold dust everywhere for us. Catherine Ponder writes that prosperity is our divine heritage. She writes in the text, you should be prosperous, well supplied, and have an abundance of good because it is your divine heritage. Now, why does she say that? Well, it's from a recognition of who and what you are. If we live, move, and have our being in the heart of God, if we were created from this abundant source that is everywhere at all times, that is everything, and we see, as I love to say that, we recognize that source, or the creator, only creates in multiplicity, right? Like, God could have been done with just roses. If that was the only flower, we would have still had a lot of beauty in terms of flowers, right? But there's roses, and there's sunflowers, and there's hydrangeas, and all other kinds of, I don't know all the names of the flowers, but all kinds of flowers, right? Dandelions, right? Chrysanthemums. See, I just affirmed something that I didn't know. The mind of God is just giving me. Right? Peonies, yes, right? So, you just think about it. God could have been done with roses, right? And we would have enjoyed the beauty of flowers, but God creates in multiplicity. So there's all these different, not only different varieties of flowers, but within each variety, there are additional varieties and additional colors. That's how God creates. And so if you are made in the likeness and image of that source, if you are, as A Course in Miracles teaches us, that we are the sons of God or the sons and daughters, what that simply means is that we're the progeny of God, that we come from that thing. That means that its DNA is within us. That means that all that is true of it must be true of us. So it's your divine heritage. You should be prosperous, well supplied, and have an abundance of good because it is your divine heritage. It's the same truth of your Creator. Right? We understand if you met someone and their last name was Rockefeller, what would you assume about their financial standing in the world? You would automatically have an assumption about who and what they are and what they have access to on this planet because of their name, because of their heritage. Well, this is the same truth for you. Because your name is God's name. As we love to say, you are God's good idea. Now, it goes a step further, and I love that she writes this in the text, because as we recognize and we understand that prosperity is our divine heritage, there's something that we can do to try to still justify and wrap our minds around being prosperous. And she writes it this way. She says, do not go to the other extreme either and talk of wanting to be prosperous for the good you can do. That is secondary. You want to be prosperous mainly because it is your right that you should be. Prosperity is your divine heritage as a child of the King, as a son of God. Now, why does she say that? Because what I find amongst spiritual folk is that we may embrace this idea of being prosperous. We may embrace this idea of being wealthy. We may embrace this idea of being rich because, being rich means that then I can help all these other people. That's secondary to first knowing the truth of your divine heritage, that it's your right. Because it would be like this. Being prosperous and recognizing even the cycle of giving and receiving is just like breathing. Do you exhale because you're like, oh my gosh, as I exhale, all of these trees outside of me will be able to benefit from what I'm giving to it? Do you think that? It's just a natural cycle that you breathe in and you breathe out. And by law, those that need to receive what you're breathing out will receive it. But you don't have to, you don't consciously say, well, I can feel good about breathing in all of this oxygen because I know that I'm going to give out carbon dioxide to the trees. That's not how we think. But we do that when we're trying to wrap our minds around prosperity. When we try to wrap our minds around wealth, we can feel good because, someone else is going to benefit from it. But that's secondary because we first have to get this consciousness in our mind of our divine heritage, just like breathing in oxygen is your divine natural heritage. But because there's a law in operation, that law provides the benefit for others as you are giving and receiving, giving and receiving. But you can take your attention off of that. That actually takes care of itself. Now, I dealt with this next piece in a message we did a few summers ago. It was a series where we honored women of New Thought, and we did a message on Catherine Ponder. And that message that I brought in that month was There Is No Ceiling. And there's something that she writes in the first chapter that can feel troubling. She says that poverty is a sin. And that can be hard to hear. Now, first of all, we got to deal with this word sin. We can go back to the May series, the Neville Goddard Pure Imagination series. There was a message I preached that month, A Sinner's Prayer. And we talked about what it actually means to sin. Sin simply means to miss the mark. And we recognize that what's taught is that if we've sinned, we must repent. And what repenting simply means is changing our mind. So we recognize then that when we make a mistake or when we miss a mark, it is because of something we were thinking that is unlike the truth of our very being. And so what Catherine Ponder writes, as she's saying that poverty is a sin, what she essentially is saying is that poverty is the result of lack and limitation thinking. And we've missed the mark because we are not in alignment with the truth of ourselves. Now, she writes, poverty is a form of hell caused by man's blindness to God's unlimited good for him. Now, that's the truth. Now, there's a difference. Poverty is a consciousness. Being poor is a limited experience. There are a whole bunch of people that have lived poor, have been poor, but they didn't remain poor. Right? So we're not talking, hear this, right? This statement is not a judgment against anyone who is poor or does not currently have enough financial resources, right? Many of us have been in that space and place, and we're not there now. To be poor is a temporary condition, just like being broke is a temporary condition. But poverty is a way of thinking. Now, Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics, he says it this way. Poverty is a way of living and thinking, not just a lack of money or things. He also says prosperity is a way of living or thinking, not just having money or things. Right? Because we can look at many people that are wealthy, but we recognize that their consciousness is not actually a consciousness of prosperity. They just happen to have a lot of things. It works on both sides. This is why we can talk about it, right? It has to be true on both sides, otherwise it's not the truth. But it's important for us to understand and come into this realm of understanding because so often we've been taught that being poor is a virtue, that somehow God is going to bless us or treat us well or better because we've shunned wealth, right? But the truth is, when we think about it, right, how can we, if we don't accept the prosperity that is our birthright, if we don't accept this divine heritage, how can we be of any good on the earth, right? Even as we go back to this previous point of wanting to do good on the earth, and we all do, right? Particularly everyone here, I'm sure. You want to be a light in this world. You want your presence on the earth to matter, as you want to, as Reverend Michael would say, you want to be a beneficial presence on the earth, right? We all desire that. Well, if you're worried about how you're going to pay your rent, how are you going to be a beneficial presence to the planet? Right? If you're worried about not having enough food, how can you be a beneficial presence to the planet? Because your mind is on all of those things. It's impossible. So this is why it's important for us to accept this truth of our life, this divine heritage, because then, again, it takes care of itself. Once we've accepted the all-sufficiency of life, once we've shifted our consciousness to the truth that prosperity is a way of living and thinking, not just the lack of money or things, then, not just having money or things, prosperity, then all of a sudden we open our consciousness, our thoughts, we can actually receive new ideas, and then we can do things on the planet and be a beneficial presence by default. Because your space is now open up for new ideas. Until that point, you're trying to get new ideas about how to get a new job. You're trying to get new ideas about how to pay that bill. You're trying to get new ideas about all those other things, so then no other inspired ideas can come forward. Now, to this same point, Jesus says something along these lines, and I'm going to go to outside of the Bible. I'm going to go to the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas in verse 3. And this is really taking us to the same idea of understanding where prosperity lives. Now, verse 3 of the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says this: "If those who lead you say, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty." So what is he saying here in this text? First, he's admonishing us to this truth that there's gold dust everywhere. If someone says to you that your good can only be found in the sky or in heaven, as some people would say, well, that means the birds are going to get there before us. If some people say to you that the good, that the kingdom is in the seas, in the vastness of the seas, well, then the fish are going to get there before you. But the truth is that it is inside of us. The prosperity that you seek, it is a way of thinking and living, so it's internal. But then also, it's outside of us. There's gold dust everywhere. It's in the ethers, right? And we call forth that substance, and it comes into form. But then he goes a step further, and he says, as Catherine Ponder is talking about this idea of we must come to know that this is our divine heritage, he's saying, when you come to know yourselves, then you will become known. And you will realize that you are the sons of the living Father. What did Catherine Ponder say? She said, your divine heritage is as a child of the King, a son or a daughter of God. But then he also says, but if you don't know yourselves, if you choose not to accept this idea of your divine heritage, then you dwell in poverty. And it is you who are that poverty. You become that poverty because that's your consciousness. So whatever we're thinking on a chronic basis, that's who we become. We become poverty. And so similarly, on the other side of that, that means that then we can become prosperity. Can we affirm this truth together? There is gold dust in the air for me.
There is gold dust in the air for me.
My good is everywhere.
My good is everywhere.
Yes, yes. And so we move a step further. Because the other part that we must recognize, if the gold dust is everywhere for us, we've said it many times, but I believe it can't be said enough, that God can only do for you what God can do through you. I'll say that again. God can only do for you what God can do through you. That means that there's not going to be some, although sometimes it feels magical, there's not going to be some magical moment, right? The burning bush, the story of the burning bush was a story. And I love how Dr. Will Coleman puts it. He says, the burning bush wasn't consumed because it took place in Moses' mind. It's not going to be a burning bush in that literal sense. Although it can feel like that as we have beautiful, powerful, profound experiences of miracles and answered prayers. It will feel like that. But what's going to happen? It's going to happen through you, through your own consciousness, the channel that you create. Then source, law, cause, God, the universe, use whatever name feels good, is going to fill that channel that you've created. It's going to fill that lane. It's going to come through and bring forth the prosperity, the good. But as Catherine Ponder says, God can only do for you what God can do through you by means of your thoughts and ideas which lead to your reactions. Thus, prosperous thinking opens the ways to prosperous results. We got to get it in our mind. And the first key is to just know that it's everywhere. My good is everywhere. The first key is to know that there is gold dust everywhere for all of us. And peace and plenty and good health and happiness are divine heritage. So this means that then if our thoughts and ideas lead to our reactions, and prosperous thinking opens the ways to prosperous results, then what does that look like? Catherine Ponder shares with us in the text a number of affirmations and a number of stories. She shares a story of a woman who did not have a steady income. She had, she says, several children, and her husband had left them, and they didn't have money, and this woman was bedridden. She didn't say what her illness was, but she was bedridden and could not work. But every month, her needs were supplied. because she developed a consciousness of prosperity. She recognized that prosperous thinking opens the ways to prosperous results. And so what this woman would do when a need arose and she needed some substance, she needed a miracle, she needed something to show up so she could take care of her family, she began to affirm, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God at work in this situation now. She began to speak that over and over within her own consciousness. Be still and know that I am God at work in this situation now. She said that within herself, recognizing that God is within her and it is working. And she is shifting her consciousness. She is shifting her mind. She is talking to the fear. She is talking to the doubt. She's talking to the worry. And I love this affirmation, be still and know, because it takes me back to that beautiful idea from Emily Cady, that doing is secondary to being. She was bedridden. She couldn't go out and work. Right? She couldn't go and send out her resume and figure things out. She couldn't hustle. She couldn't do any of those things. She had to know the truth. But knowing the truth is where the power is. Now, she talks about a housewife. There was a housewife that needed money. She needed to pay 2 bills that were due at the end of the week. And she says when this woman, she felt the fear creep in, she began to affirm something very simple. She went to the Psalms and said, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." Powerful affirmation. I love that affirmation. Now, we've talked about what Lord is and what Lord means, right? What is Lord? Lord is the self-existing one. From this perspective of consciousness and from even the perspective of the equations, the mathematical equations that exist, we recognize that there's an equation that shows us that consciousness gives of itself and gives back to itself and never exhausts itself. It's plenty. It's more than enough. And it continues to give of itself, and there's still more than enough. That's the thing that's your shepherd. That's the thing that's your guide. That's the thing that is taking you where you need to go and will never steer you wrong. That's the thing that's going to take you to the grass that's plenty. That's the thing that's going to take you to the water. That's the thing that's going to take you into your good. That's the thing that is going to ensure your prosperity. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you hear the definiteness in that? I shall not want. I will not want. It's impossible for me to want. The Lord is my shepherd. And just a quick aside, there's a video that Pastor Yolanda and I shared with Pastor Yolanda a week or so ago. It was a conversation with Abraham Hicks. It was Abraham and Jerry Hicks talking about this idea of hope. And I normally quote Ernest Holmes because Ernest Holmes says that hope is an unconscious compromise and a subtle illusion. He writes that hope is better than despair, right? And if you study Abraham Hicks, you know there's the emotional scale, right? So if you're in despair, to move up to hope is better than being in despair, and that's a good thing. But the problem with hope, I love how Abraham defines it. Actually, Abraham asked Jerry the question and asked Jerry Hicks, how do you define hope? And he said, hope is wanting mixed with doubt. See, that's what hope really is. And so the definiteness of this statement, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's not the Lord is my shepherd and I hope I get what I need. See, hope is wanting, that you want that thing, but there's still some doubt in there. This is why hope is a subtle illusion. It's better than despair. Hear me. If you found yourself in despair and now you have hope, thank God. Just know that there's another place to move up to, up the emotional scale, right? So we don't stay there any longer than we need to, right? But we want to move to this definite place of I shall not want. She tells the story of a businessman. He had a large family. And I'm sure there are people that can relate to this. He only got paid once a month. And so it was near the end of the month, and the groceries in the house were a little low, and his wife told him, we actually need more food. And he didn't get paid. He doesn't get paid for another couple of weeks. Have you ever been there? It's like payday is in a couple weeks, and things aren't looking, right? Real stories, yes? But him and his wife, they knew the truth. And so they affirmed together the truth. Our sufficiency is of God. You could say my supply is of God, or you could say God is my supply. The all that is my supply. The universe is my supply. And this is why I love when we think about nature and we think about the universe and we think about the cosmos. If that is your supply, do you realize if we just look at the cosmos, we know about currently trillions of galaxies, but every day new galaxies are being discovered. That's what your supply is, that thing that creates in trillions. Your own body is a manifestation of the trillions. There are trillions of cells as your body. That's what your supply is, that which only knows how to create more than enough. It just can't help itself. Our sufficiency is of God. And of course, what happens in that story? There was money that they forgot all about. An unexpected check showed out of a tax refund that they weren't expecting. They were expecting a federal refund, but they weren't expecting a state refund. And the check showed up right on time, and they had more than enough money to move forward and have what they needed for their family. Our sufficiency is of God. And then she tells the story of a saleswoman who, in her business, had a lot of expenses. I know we have business owners here, and Pastor Yolanda and I can relate. You have a lot of expenses, yes, yes. And many times your expenses exceed what your current cash flow is, right? And you're trying to figure it out, and you're trying to balance things, and you got to make sure everyone gets paid, and sometimes that means you don't get paid, right? Well, this saleswoman was in that particular space and place, but not only she have a lot of expenses, but her sales were declining. Oh, Lord. So needless to say, she was in a little bit of fear. She was in a little doubt. She was a little worried. But she remembered the truth that prosperous ideas and prosperous thinking bring prosperous results. And so she began to affirm, give me this day my daily bread. As she was actually a saleswoman in a store. And you can do this, whether you're working with clients, whatever type of service you have, whatever type of business you have. You enter that day by saying, give me this day my daily bread. Recognizing that there is something available for you every day, the all-sufficiency that is of God. And when you get used to that, give me this day, then you start saying, give me this week my daily bread. Give me this month my daily bread. Give me this quarter my daily bread. Oh my goodness. Give me this year my daily bread. And you just expect that. You walk into the day. You walk into the week. You walk into the month knowing and expecting, just as you know and expect that you will receive the oxygen every day, so you walk in that same place knowing that your daily bread will be supplied. And of course, what happened with this woman? Her sales went up. She started receiving commission checks. Everybody was looking at her like, what are you doing? I don't understand. How are you able to do this? And everybody else was still struggling. Because she came back into the truth and began to look at the source for these prosperous ideas. And so I'm encouraging you not only to get the book, but take one of these affirmations today. Take one and use it. Try it out. Try it on like a new jacket. Just see how it fits. Be still and know that I am God, that God is at work in this situation now. Take it on and try it on. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If Lord doesn't resonate for you, love is my shepherd, I shall not want. Peace is my shepherd. Prosperity is my shepherd. The all-sufficiency is my shepherd. Whatever word feels good for you that resonates, that you recognize as this inexhaustible supply, that's the thing that's guiding you. That's the thing that's leading you. That's the thing which only wants to take care of you, right? Shepherd is a beautiful word. If you've ever looked at shepherds and understood what shepherds do, they love their sheep. And shepherds they're there to protect the sheep. They're there to keep the sheep from the wolves. They're always making sure that there's more than enough grass for all of the sheep. They make sure they have enough water to drink. That's what shepherds do. That's their only job, right? So you can know that this thing has your best interest at heart, and then you affirm, I shall not want. Or you may do like that businessman with the family and say, my sufficiency is of God, or our sufficiency is of God. Or you could say, give me this day my daily bread. Give me this week my daily bread. Walk into your week differently. And so finally, I just want us to affirm this truth together. There is gold dust in the air for me.
There is gold dust in the air for me.
My good is everywhere. Everyone and everything prospers me now. Affirm that again. Everyone and everything prospers me now. There is gold dust in the air for me. Everyone and everything prospers me now. Let us stand on that. Let us stand on that. This is just the beginning. We're going to dig in deeper into this consciousness of prosperity. And it starts by first just knowing this truth. Don't do like I was doing in Home Depot. We all have that story. You can think about your own lives where you're like, I can't see it. I can't see it. You're trying to put it all together. You're trying to balance that budget, and you're affirming, I can't see it. I can't see it. Change the words that you're saying and say, I see it. I see it. It is here now. Everyone and everything prospers me now. For there is gold dust everywhere for me. And as we breathe in, we speak this word in faith. Mother, Father, God, we recognize that you are our all-sufficiency. We recognize that you are our shepherd. We recognize that you are the Lord, that thing which is inexhaustible. It gives of itself and continues to return back to itself. It is plenty. It is more than enough. We recognize you to be this thing. We recognize you to be the multiplicity that we see in the cosmos. We recognize that you are multiple moons and multiple suns and multiple planets and multiple galaxies and multiple solar systems. We recognize that you are the plenty that we see all over this earth, that you are not just one variety of flowers, but you are multiple varieties of flowers. And within those varieties, you are the multiple colors, and you are the multiple sizes, and you are the multiple shapes. We recognize that you are the multiplicity that is expressed through humanity, that we are billions of people on this planet. And yes, not only are we billions, but we represent every shade and every color and every hair texture and every height and every way of being. We recognize that you deal only in multiplicity. We bring our minds and our attention to this truth because the multiplicity is the more than enoughness. And that more than enoughness is the thing that we are seeking to feel and express and know in our lives. We declare, we affirm, and we decree that we are one with the multiplicity that you are. We are one with the allness that you are. We are one with the prosperity that you are. We are one with the abundance that you are. And as we know that we are one with that thing, now we can affirm and expect and look and know that that prosperity must show up in our lives. We forgive ourselves. We set ourselves free for any error thinking, for any poverty thinking, for any lack thinking. We forgive ourselves and we set ourselves free. But now that we know better, we're going to do better. Now that we know better, we're going to speak better. Now that we know better, we're going to affirm better. Now that we know better, we are going to live better. We're going to live differently from this consciousness that prosperity is our divine heritage. Prosperity is our divine heritage, for we are the sons and the daughters of abundance. Can we affirm that truth? I am the child of abundance.
I am the child of abundance.
Abundance is my mother.
Abundance is my mother.
Abundance is my father.
Abundance is my father.
Abundance is my name.
Abundance is my name.
And so as we know what our name is, Mother, Father, God, we are choosing this week to prove it. We are choosing this week to demonstrate it. We are choosing this week to express it. I am so grateful and thankful for the prosperous beings that are in this room and within the sound of my voice and that will hear this message. I am grateful and thankful for the testimonies, for the love stories that will come forth as a result of this very word, as a result of this very affirmation. Knowing who and what we are, knowing that our mother is abundance, knowing that our father is abundance. And now we will live as that from this day forward. For this, I am so very grateful. I release this word with joy, with expectation. I release it back into the law, back into the cause that is always working easily and effortlessly. And together we lift up our voices. We say, Amen, Ashe. And so it is. And so it is. Yes, yes.